Hello everyone, in today's video we are going to be creating Land of Eem characters, and this is going to be the first time that I am ever doing this. It's one of my favorite games, and I think making a character in it sounds really fun. So that is what we're going to be doing today, and the first ever character creation video I think deserves to be Land of Eem. So I'm super hyped about this, and I've already picked out kind of a theme for my character and things like that, so we'll kind of get rolling in a second here. But just from the beginning of the video, I want to say please, 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 if you like the way that the character creation works in this game, you think the ideas are really funny, you know, the game just sounds interesting in general, I would highly recommend getting it. It is a whimsical fantasy game. It's described to be Muppets meets Lord of the Rings, which is honestly just a really fun vibe. It's got whimsy in it. It also has a little bit of doom and gloom and some industrialism, which adds some really interesting themes to explore in-game. You dive into dungeons, you deal with factions and rival corporations and stuff like that. So it's just a really fun game. And all the while you're playing kind of these little guy heroes, which I think is awesome. So we are going to make a little guy hero here in this video. So it says to think about a character concept. I already know from my look through of the game, I really want to play a Boggle as my folk, and then as my class, I'm really interested in the Loyal Chum because I think it's a really fun class concept. Now, the way that Land of Eem works is that the character sheet is actually split off into two pieces. The first piece being like your actual character information, like you see on screen here. Now, this is for your skills, your abilities, personal quests, backstory, tracking your XP, your level, what items you have, and all of that good stuff. And then the other sheet, which is up on screen here, is your class sheet. Now this is the one that keeps track of all of your class abilities, and it's a great quick reference for when you're actually playing the game. You can track your XP and the way that you spend it there, and also which abilities you have. So we are starting off on the class sheet because we have selected the Loyal Chum to be our class. Now again, this is one of my favorite classes in the game because it's basically playing as like a best friend. You are a best friend to someone in the party, and along with that you are also like just friends with a lot of people across the Land of Eem itself. For the Loyal Chum, you do have to pick someone in the party to be best friends with. Now, as I'm just creating a random character, I don't have anyone, so we're just gonna put nobody here very quickly. I don't have any friends yet. Or maybe I'm friends with Odysseus from Epic, who knows. But when you pick a Loyal Chum, you get some perks. One special best chum perk, which you can use every session. And the ones that are available is Lighten the Mood, say something funny or kind to heal the best chum for 1d12, take a hit, suffer dread meant for the best chum, or share the load, suffer the consequences of the best chum's failed check. Now, personally, I think it would be really fun to do Lighten the Mood. I think that would be really fun is like, hey, maybe you're all sitting around a campfire, it was just a really big fight, and, you know, best chum is feeling really drained from it and not doing so good. And, you know, as the Loyal Chum, you just start cracking some jokes, like, you know, that manicore wasn't too bad in there. At least it didn't have foreheads. And you just kind of start to make light of the situation and bring up the mood a bit, which I think is really fun. So I think Lighten the Mood would be a really good one. So I'm going to do that. And then also as a Loyal Chum, you get a handicraft. So that can be cooking, building, or alchemy. With such a big element of Land of Eem being like kind of going, doing like these actual campouts while you're on your journey, I think cooking would be really fun, especially because there's a lot of mechanics in Land of Eem that supports cooking and being able to find new ingredients and recipes and stuff like that while you're exploring the world. And what cooking does is when the Loyal Chum cooks a meal, all eaters heal 1d10 instead of 1d6 after a night of rest. So again, it's like a fun support class, and I think it does it in really cool, flavorful ways, versus just like, oh yeah, you know, you just heal some people. No, you cook them a meal and you make them feel comfortable and happy and warm, and like it's a vibe, and I love that. For your abilities in Land of Eem, it does a really cool thing that when you are, let's say, level 1, since we are making a level 1 character here, we actually get both of these abilities on the sheet, both Old Chums and Lend a Hand. We are going to pick both of these. So, Old Chums is a charm check. Once every session, invent an old friend that the loyal chum has run into who can help or give advice, which, again, is really fun because it's just a great way to be able to add something to the world as a character. And then lend a hand. Once every session, if an ally fails a check, the loyal chum can make a check instead, replacing the ally's result. Additionally, gain advantage when catching someone's fall, pulling them from danger, or similar. It is really fun flavor when it comes to support. It's actually like putting it in the game that where you literally have an ability where you help catch someone who is falling. How cool is that? And like, you know, it'll come up in game and it'll happen, and then like you get your moment to like shine and do that ability. And then you can also see just which one comes up in game more, which one comes up in the situations that you're encountering more before you decide on one for sure. So this is really what we have to do on this first sheet, plus I guess put a little level 1 there. And then moving on from that, we go over to the other sheet here. And we are going to be assigning our modifiers and attributes. So there are 4 abilities in this game: Vim, Vigor, Knack, and Know-How, which I just love the names for them because I think it just, again, sets the stage really well of like what kind of game this is. When you assign your stats, it is a +2, a +1, a +0, and a -1. Now, especially for the chum, with being a little bit more charismatic, a little bit more like working with people and all of that, we want Vim to probably be our highest stat here because I think that's going to be really beneficial for them. In terms of then Vigor, Knack, and Know-How. So Vim is a lot more, you charm people, inspire, meddle, perception, that kind of thing. Vigor is athletics, intimidation, might, and vitality. Knack is nimbleness, searching, sneaky, trickery. And then Know-How is lore, realms, tinker, and wilderness. Now, I feel like because we chose cooking for our loyal chum ability, I would like to have a bit of a higher know-how. So I'm going to put that at a +1. Feel like out of the 2, they would be better at Knack and then not as good at Vigor. Deciding that athletics and being scary and really like holding their own in battle is going to be something that they're not so good at. And now we're just going to fill in our little numbers here because then we actually get to modify these skills themselves and give it a little bit more flavor there instead of everything just being, you know, +2, -1 and all of that across the board. Now, when it has you modify your skills, it has you do a -1 to a +2 skill, a -1 to a +1 skill, then a +1 to a +0 skill, and a +1 to a -1 skill. Going into Vim here, we're going to have one of these be a -1. So I think perception would be kind of fun. Maybe our friend here is very good at, you know, making friends, encouraging them, like working with people, but they're not so good at noticing things that are happening. And then for Vigor here, maybe they have some intimidate. So we're going to change that to a +1. And so they're just a little bit better at that. And I feel like that reflects maybe some more of their social skills. And then our Knack, they're not good at like really noticing things. So I think search would not be super good. Trickery, I don't feel like would work as well, but I feel like nimbleness would make sense, especially since boggles are kind of little guys that are a little slippery. So I think nimbleness would be really fun. And then our know-how here, we need to bump one of these down. It could make sense to maybe knock down lore. I don't think that they would be as good in lore, and trying to remember the things that they have learned over time. So they're very bad at history. And they're bad at noticing things. So now we have kind of the base of our character done, and we're going to be filling in some of our other stats here. We're going to start with courage and dread. Now these are decided by our class. My courage is 13 plus Vim, and our Vim is 2. So we have a 15 courage. Now, for our dread, which is in this little box here, that is going to be 1d6. Now, the way that dread works in this game is that's basically damage. That is physical damage, mental damage, anything like that, that can basically affect your character and start to wear them out. Our defense is actually the inverse of Knack. So what defense is, and unfortunately, ours is 0, basically removes from the roll of the attacker. When you roll in this game, you roll a d12, and then the higher you roll, the better. And so then your defense just minuses or pluses a number to that roll. So if you had a really high Knack, then you would actually be much better at defending yourself, but if you have a low knack, then you are going to be worse at defending yourself. Now, we also have quest points, which is 3 plus know-how, so we have 4 of those. And I actually can't remember exactly what quest points do. I think they have something to do with re-rolling, I believe. Being able to re-roll some of your dice as you're playing the game. And then, last but not least, we have inventory slots, which is 20 plus might plus vitality. And because both of those are negative, we have 18 inventory slots. And that is all the things that we have to do in this area. And then we get to move on to our folk here. Boggles are one of my favorite folk in this game. They are basically like miniature goblins mixed with like an imp, and so they're just like these little guys and they're just like a little scrimbly, and I love them. I think they're so cute. What we need to do now is that we have to take some skills from our boggle. So it's going to either give me a plus in charm, nimbleness, or sneak. Now, because of the character I'm going to be playing, I really want to lean into the charm. So I'm going to do a +1 in charm and bump that up to a +3. And then I'm going to take the -1. It is giving me the option of might, intimidate, or metal. Now, I really like the idea of this guy just not being strong at all. So I'm going to take that additional -1 and put it into might here, into a -2, which then upgrades my inventory slots to 17. So hopefully we have a strong friend. Then we are going to pick 2 folk perks and then a folk quirk. So the perks are actually like give you an advantage while playing the game, and then a quirk is something that will kind of give you a penalty. So the first one is Boggle Solidarity. Basically, boggles have a bond with each other, and so anytime that you try to parlay with a boggle during combat, you have advantage. And then there's also Escape Artist, which gives you proficiency in running away and escaping bonds. And then there's Tiny, which means that you can just fit in really small spaces. And then for quirks, we have Pipsqueak, which is some boggles prefer to avoid physical confrontation. PCs have a -2 courage. And then Smallboned. Little frames carry less items. PCs have a -5 inventory slot. I think I want to go with the Boggle Solidarity. We are also going to do Escape Artist because I think that's really fun. And then I think with how my character is, not really being one to be super physical in their actions, I think Pipsqueak would make the most sense for their quirk. And so that gives us some nice little quirks and perks and all of that. And then we are also going to put proficiencies over here for running away and escaping, since that's going to be giving us advantage when we make those types of rolls, and we want to be able to remember that on the first sheet. Now for the next thing, we're going to be doing some background stuff, and that is going to be choosing where we are from. Now I'm going to go with the Drippy Downs. PCs from here grew up near the misty rolling hills and grasslands bordering Grimly Wood. They likely love nature and freedom to wander the wilderness where fairy folk still dwell. So I think that maybe for our loyal chum here, they're also like more entrenched in the more magical, whimsy world. They like also being a free spirit. And I think that also makes sense with like choosing not to do violence and trying to avoid more physical encounters and stuff like that, I think reflects really well in this. So we're going to choose the Drippy Downs, and then we get 2 proficiencies from our homeland. And we have fairy lore, hunting, climbing, jumping, cooking, and wrestling. So 4 proficiencies here. We do get cooking already because we did pick that ability. But I think fairy lore could be fun. They're not that good at remembering it, but it's something that they have advantage on. Climbing would be really fun. And then we also have a whole bunch of equipment. I'm just going to quickly do that. So I have it all listed out here, and we get a bear trap, a bedroll, a canteen, a knife, normal rations, umbrella, walking stick. I didn't do that correctly. Walking stick and cookware, which that's actually really nice that we do start with some cookware, since that does fit in with our actual class here and also like the abilities that we're good at. So that's nice. Then we also get to roll 2 mundane items, which is on page 88. The mundane items are basically things that you get in shops and stuff like that, things that you can buy. So they are allowing you to basically roll 2 of those for free, just so that you have a little bit more variety in the items that you're bringing. Rolling for our first one, it's going to be 369. 316. So for 369, we get a trombone. So apparently my character can play an instrument, or Maybe they stole it from somewhere. I don't know. And then for 316, we get a shovel. So that's fun. So let's put a shovel and a trombone on the list. Now, I'm already starting to ask myself some questions on like, where did they get this trombone? Now, we move on to backstory and stuff like that. So we get to choose name and pronouns. Now, honestly, I'm always really horrible at naming my characters. It's really nice because they do have a selection of names that you can choose from in the folk section, but I feel like I should name this character. So let's think for a second. We're going to name him Darn Bell because I think that might be really fun. He is going to be he, him pronouns. Then we get to choose from the book different backstory things. For the loyal chum, we are going to roll a d6. I actually don't have a d6 at the ready, so I have to grab one of my big dice bags. For the loyal chum, we're going to be rolling on the background roll table here, and we get 3. So 3 is I piled my trade for years as an apprentice, but the allure of adventuring life was too strong. Here's the thing, we already have this figured out. They were working at a restaurant. They were on track to become a really awesome chef. They were an apprentice to a chef, but the allure of adventuring was too strong, and we could explore that even further in game of like why the lure was too strong. What about it called to them? And now I'm like getting Senshi vibes from from Dungeon Meshi. This guy who decided to go off in adventuring, going into dungeons, all of that, and all they want to do is cook for their friends and make them happy. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love Senshi so much, so this makes me really happy. And we're also going to put, because there is a section about having like rivals and allies in your backstory, I'm going to decide that there's an ally, and it's going to be my old mentor. So moving on to the next thing, we are going to be rolling on ideals. Now, the really cool thing about Land of Eem is that your flaws and ideals actually like do something in this game versus like D&D. But in Land of Eem, when you play towards your flaws and ideals and play into them and demonstrate them, you actually get XP. So we get a 2, and it says, risk my life for a party member. That is my ideal. They are willing to risk their life for a party member. They're willing to put themselves between harm of their friends. And again, I think like friends is like a big foundation for this character. They love their friends and they want to defend their friends. Also, I forgot to fill in my attack here. It's -1. For flaws, we get 4. I poke my nose where it doesn't belong. This is really fun because that means they're really nosy. People are maybe talking about something that they're not involved in, but they can't help but to want to listen in. And that's just a really fun way where maybe they can get information. That's what ends up getting them in trouble and stuff like that. So I think that's a really fun flaw, personally. And then we are going to have our personal quest. Roll one up and see what we get. So we got 1, and that is prevent blank from falling into the wrong hands. Maybe there is a ultra secret recipe book talked about throughout the lands of having the best and most powerful recipes. So maybe there is a recipe grimoire, and we want to prevent the recipe grimoire from falling into the wrong hands. And then let's roll on the relationship table. We're only going to do 1 for an example. We got a 3, and it says, blank is a big grump, but I'm going to do my darndest to befriend. They don't really care about relationships as much, and they really want to, just kind of be on their own. But my character is persistent on getting to know them and trying to be their friend. So I think that would be really fun. Now, normally if you're playing this game and you have a party of people, you would kind of go back and forth of like developing these relationships and using these prompts and stuff. I'm not going to be doing that. That is actually pretty much it. That is my character. The character creation is pretty simple here. It took me a little bit just because, I'm referencing back and forth and trying to record a video and stuff. I'm sure you could do this in like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And have a complete character. Now, if you're working with some other people and you're like trying to do all of the relationship aspect of it, that's probably going to take a little bit longer, but honestly, it's super easy. I have a whole bunch of proficiencies and a whole idea for my boggle here, Darn Bell. So Darn Bell is a apprentice chef. They worked with a professional chef somewhere in the Drippy Downs, and their whole life they basically spent mastering this craft. but there was something about adventuring that allured them. Maybe it's the fact that they could expand their recipes and what they actually cook because they can go out into the world and find new ingredients. Maybe we lean into that senshi vibe and we lean into the vibe of being this chef who's dungeon delving. I think that's really fun, especially since Senshi is one of my favorite characters in Dungeon Meshi again. It's the call of finding and fighting your own food and then making it afterwards and having that be a ritual with your friends. And so that's really fun. And their personal quest is to prevent the recipe grimoire from falling into the wrong hands. A magical cookbook full of recipes that perform spell-like abilities on people. So that's what we have, and honestly, I'm pretty freaking excited. This is an awesome character. I would totally play this character, and now I really want to play this character. And that's what Land of Eem character creation looks like. So yeah, I'm super hyped. I really want to play this character now, and hopefully maybe I can get a game together or something that I can. But yeah, this was super fun. I want to do more character creation videos like this because like it's fun to just sit down and randomly think up of a character that would be cool to play. So I think this is really awesome. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and even what games you would like me to create characters in, because honestly, I'm open. Anything that I have on my shelf back here, I'm open to do, and anything new, I like getting new games. Maybe next time I'll do a Powered by the Apocalypse character, or maybe a Brindlewood Bay character, or something like that. That could be fun. That is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, then like it, and subscribe if you want to see more RPG content about games that are outside of D&D. And leave a comment if you think that Darn Bell is an adorable little guy and you would love to have him in your party, because I know that I really want to have him in my party. But that is it, so goodbye!